when we have these conversations, we truly do believe that everything must be literally black and white.
I'm not looking for a similar philosophy. This is a great opportunity to have what we call a critical conversation.
Yes,
And
diversity slay, we love it. Welcome to Come Back with Erica Cobb, a community of folks like yourselves who are getting ready and staying ready for your next chapter. Well, my guest today is the change you want to be, the change that you want to see. She exemplifies such accomplishments as the 50 most influential Black people in sports by USA Today's 2022 list, 100 most influential Blacks today, and Sports Business Journal Game Changer in 2020. She is currently the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, as well as the first woman of color to hold a role of that level in the Denver Broncos organization. Go Broncos. She states, I realized that maybe all these rejections were God's way of saying that He has something bigger for you. Get out of that space. There's something on the other side you haven't seen yet. I didn't pray for a job, I prayed for patience. China Lee Jude, welcome to Come Back with Erica Cobb.
oh, thank you, Erica. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to speak to you. And
I am so well, I'm so excited to have you. We met very organically in the wild in real life. We were at a charity event, and I am so happy that we connected.
yes, definitely. It was just so wonderful to meet you. I was very excited. And then I became even more excited to be invited on your show.
Well, I tell you, I've been in Denver since 2009, and we see each other. Like when
True.
you run into another Black woman and we're talking about what we do, and I was like, we both were like, okay, we have to get together for coffee. And I was like,
Yeah.
also, you got to be on my podcast because you are killing it, absolutely killing it. So let's
Um,
get into it. You've
yeah.
been a player, coach, and on the administrative side. Is that the normal trajectory for someone in your position, or does it give you kind of a unique perspective?
I truly believe that it does give me a unique perspective. I started way back when in broadcast journalism as a radio disc jockey and wanted to work in sports. And so at that time, I wanted to take Robin Roberts' job, who's now with
Wow.
Good Morning America.
Yes.
And so I knew that no matter what I did, that I wanted to be connected in sports. Now, specifically in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, we come from all different types of industries, whether it's in marketing or education or sports or, community service. It just really varies. And this
Mhm.
is new space in the
Yeah.
DEI space, especially in the NFL. So we're pretty diverse when it comes to all 32 designees on each of the teams.
Well, I mean, I've been a Bronco season ticket holder for
Thank
almost a
you.
decade. Yes. And I was especially excited last season or going into last season. Yes. Where there was so much diversity and the amplification of minority voices that we hadn't seen in the organization before. Were you a part of that shift?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity to really lean into it and take an investment on diversity, equity, inclusion. Unfortunately, it came on the heels of George Floyd's murder. So many teams, many organizations and businesses were stepping up in the DEI space in a lot of different ways. But I was just so happy that the Broncos was very committed to make sure to create a new position and to place this new position on an executive level to make sure that it's going to impact and influencing policies and creating change for the entire company.
Can you be more specific about what your job entails? Because a lot of people hear DEI and all sorts of things come to mind. So, what exactly is it that you do?
Definitely. Well, DEI looks different for different organizations. And my particular role is to be able to navigate throughout the entire company. It doesn't matter what the position level, it doesn't matter what the department, but to make sure that we are having a much wider lens when it comes to conducting businesses. And it really ties into our business priorities. So it could be something as simple as our educational programming. It could be how we recruit, how we're very intentional when it comes to casting out a wide net for diverse prospects in various roles. It could be evaluating our policies when it comes to maternity or paternity leave. It could just be in so many different ways. Our fan base. It looks so different for different departments. So it's not like I have one specific role.
Mhm.
Any decision that is made in the company, there are always discussions. Okay, what is our target audience or client? How are we going to make sure that we are extending ourselves beyond what is considered the traditional internal or external stakeholder? We
Mhm.
want to create that culture of inclusion all across the board.
And, we see it and it's appreciated. Um, I have to say, when it comes to football, because I come from a football family, my brother played through college, he went to the combine, he played very, very briefly in the NFL.
Okay.
So football has always been a part of the culture of our family. So it makes a lot of sense that we would continue that tradition in our adult life by supporting our home team, being season ticket holders, things like that. But I'm interested in how you fell in love with football.
Oh, wow. Gosh, that's a great question. Of all the questions I've been asked, no one has ever asked me that question. So I greatly appreciate that. Well, I am an ex-wife of a former NFL player.
Okay.
But I know that when I was in college, my major was is broadcast journalism, and being a former Division I volleyball player myself, I had the a dual responsibility of serving as the sports editor of our university newspaper, student newspaper.
Mhm.
And I found myself continuously being drawn into our football team and our athletic director, who also served in a dual role as the football coach. So, of course, I'm spending a lot of time in his office interviewing him, learning more about his strategies, his recruitment strategies also. And it's just one thing led to another. I just continuously bugged him
Yeah.
over and over and over again, to the point I loved it so much. For my graduate assistant role responsibility, I was the graduate assistant for the Senior Bowl, which is a football bowl game in Mobile, Alabama, where you're showcasing all of the seniors who's trying to get drafted. So
Mhm.
it was just something I fell into, and I continuously love it. And, I couldn't be at a better place than with the Broncos.
I love that. Football is a culture. If, when you go to games, or even if you're going to your local sports bar, it's very clear that there's something more than I just want to go out and cheer for a team. There's always like a backstory. So I was curious as to where your love for football came from, but also I'm curious about how you've incorporated that love into your current role.
Yeah, so that's the beauty about it, because football is very diverse on the football side of the house, especially because you see that on television with the players, with the coaches. And so any opportunity where we can look at whether it's internal or external stakeholders to cast that net out wide to include everyone in the process. With the Broncos, we do have a footprint in Mexico City. We really engage those fans, and they're just so wonderful, and we love them. And so we know that with that fan base, there's some uniqueness about that particular fan base that we want to be able to embrace as much as possible and support them because they're such wonderful people. Same thing with women. You know, there's a very large market of women who
Yeah.
are consumers. They're the ones who are really making a significant difference. And not only, you know, during the Sunday games with the food and creating a fun environment, but they are also fans as well. And then, of course, naturally, with our different types of women's initiatives through the league, our flag football that we're introducing to young girls, and that is growing. I mean, something substantially that there is space for everyone in football, and we want to make sure that we're opening those doors for no matter what the gender, no matter what the ethnicity, it's for everyone.
I have a few thoughts on, you touched on a lot of different scopes of just the industry in general, but
Yeah.
I will say for the Broncos, I feel like going to Empower Fields now and going to other stadiums. I really do feel like I'm considered as a woman. First of all, there's a secret bathroom that's close to my section no one ever knows about. It's super new and clean. Anytime I go in there, there's never a line. And I get so excited because I'm like, no one has known about this bathroom in
Oh,
10 years.
well,
Yes.
don't tell anyone
I'm
then.
not, but there is a secret bathroom. So I don't even have to wait in line. You also, on a more serious note, spoke about the diversity in terms of on the field, off the field, and you mentioned coaches. And I know that this is a hot button issue. I'm curious about your thoughts on the diversity level of head coaches, because every year we hear the talk about not enough Black men or Black people taking over as head coach for these major league football teams. So what are your thoughts on that?
You know, that is a hot topic in many regards. And because there are certain expectations that are already set that many fans don't know. They don't know. Many times we see things from an outside appearance, whether it's by wins and losses, whether it's by how the draft is taking place. Really, for the most part, there are a lot of discussions behind the scenes on the decisions that are made. So I know that I can't speak for all 32 teams, but I do know for us, we make great decisions on our coaching staff. And it's just a matter of finding the right chemistry across the board so it can really result on that field.
And I appreciate that you can't speak for all the teams. I just wanted to get, your thought on it, because I think when we hear those conversations and even taking part in those conversations, we're taking a part from the outside looking in.
Yes.
Obviously, we know that things need to change. They have been changing. You're a part of that change. So we appreciate you being the change that we want to see.
Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, you're listening to Come Back with Erica Cobb. I am speaking with the VP of DEI for the Denver Broncos, China Lee Jude. So, China, I know it did not start off easy for you. You faced a lot of adversity. You have had your qualifications questioned.
Hmm.
What is your advice for Black women who have to deal with sexism and stereotyping?
Oh boy. You have to make sure that they stay out of your head. And I know that
Mm,
that is so much easier said than done
yeah,
because we do walk, not only we walk in our own truth, but how our reputation carries
mm,
externally does make a significant difference for us to be noticed and embraced and appreciated for the unique differences that we bring forward to whatever community or organization that we're taking a part in. So I would just say continue to be your authentic self.
mhm.
Those individuals who are going to embrace you, that's great. It's going to be celebration all around. Those who do not embrace that authenticity, you know, it's their loss.
Yeah.
It's their loss.
I think about it in terms of, because obviously you did not get here by deciding that you were going to be the VP of DEI for
Right.
the Denver Broncos yesterday. So you have had a very long journey, and a very diverse journey, but a lot of this is coming from the arena of sports. No
Right.
pun intended, but kind of. Uh, what I have found when I speak to people about what I do in terms of journalism or media, however you want to qualify it, is when I started out, I felt like I started out in an ocean of people, other talent people who were considered going after the same opportunities. And now I feel like I'm playing in more of like a kiddie pool. There's a tendency that you may even know most of the players who are doing what you're doing or at that level, because it's a much smaller population. So the tenacity is a factor,
Yes.
but it is hard to stay out of your head, especially early on, when some of the ways that people try to trigger you and get a leg up on you is to make you play against yourself by being in your own head. So what does stay out of your own head mean to you?
Oh gosh. Yes, definitely. At times that we have a tendency of relying so much on how others view us, and we start subscribing to that same way of thinking, especially when it's repetitive.
Mhm.
If you're hearing it, whether it's from the same individual or individuals multiple times, or if it's a variety of individuals, but a similar message,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden we start believing that there must be some truth to that.
Mm.
And then we buy into it, and then we pivot. We
Yeah.
pivot, we shift, thinking that is so. But it does take some special individuals who you value, who you know that has best interest at heart, their best interest at heart about how you're maneuvering in this space, where you would have to lean on, and especially in my particular case, I have to lean on my creator, my spirituality,
Yes.
to know that I know I'm walking in that truth
Mhm.
that is right, just, fair, and godly, and to help as many people or make an impact to as many communities or groups as I possibly can in this particular space. This is especially challenging in DEI
Mm.
because of the political climate that we're in. You know, there's a lot of pushing and pulling, a lot of detractors in this particular space. You're trying to figure out how to navigate through these choppy waters on what is actually a positive disruption,
Mm.
versus it's just the wrong space to be in at this particular time, especially when people are still trying to figure it out for themselves. Or maybe
Yeah.
you haven't even thought about it, like, what is my position on X,
Mhm.
controversial topic? So it's never an easy task to navigate in this particular space, but I'm going to continue to connect with positive uh, individuals, regardless if they think like me. I'm not looking for their a similar philosophy.
That's important.
I love the diversity of thoughts. I have a former student who doesn't look like me in any kind of way. He doesn't vote like me in any kind, totally opposite of me, but we have the most insightful conversations about society and every kind of facet. And I learned so much from him, and I love talking to him because
Mhm.
it helps me think of a different way. It's people like that who we can have respectful conversations
Yeah.
about. And so I'm learning and growing in this particular space. And that was one of the reasons why before the Broncos, I was working in Wyoming. I needed something different, to learn something different.
I have so many follow-up questions, and thoughts, because one, I appreciate you letting my audience in on who you are, a little bit of your ideology, and also ways to navigate. And you mentioned the climate, because it is important that people not only give themselves grace, but a little bit of grace to others who are leading with intention and good intention in order to better themselves and the world around them. I think sometimes when we have these conversations, we truly do believe that everything must be literally black and white.
Um,
And I am a person who also, like, I listen to what's being said on the right. I listen to what's being said on the left. I listen to what's being said for the moderates, because I want to know. I can't formulate an opinion if I don't even understand where some of these opinions are coming from. I want to have a foundation in that. But I think you also said something that gave me an aha moment about something that we're missing, even if you don't know where you stand. And I think it particularly for Black people, for Black women, who is the majority of my audience, we feel like when we are posed with a question, or if someone is asking us what should be done in a space that represents us, that we have to have all of the answers on
mm,
spot. And if you're responsible with that responsibility, that it might be best not to have all of those answers on spot until you can really get a more holistic understanding of what the question is and how your response could actually affect things in a positive or negative way. So I appreciate you saying that, because I thought in my head, like, that is something we do not hear. It's always like, okay, and also you don't have to be the judge and jury for every issue that comes across your table that represents Black people, Black women, or the diaspora. Okay, like, you don't have to do that. So I really, really do appreciate that. There were some other things I'm like, I'm just coming back with all this stuff, like, okay, yes, yes, I am in this. I am in this. Because we are asked for a lot and we give a lot. So grace is important for all of us.
That is true. And we have to give ourselves grace as well. Typically, we're always being that superhero in our communities and our households to be able to think on our feet and solve all of the issues in that particular space, and to juggle balls in the air like crazy. And we have to be okay to say, listen, I'm about to put this one ball down. I cannot
Mm,
trust that at that particular time. And I know I've even operated like that in some business environments. I used to be an athletic director for 10 years at two different universities before I came to the NFL. And I remember that there were some expectations that I had to address immediately. And my staff would somewhat, respectfully pressure me to making those
mm,
decisions. And I would always say, you can't force me to make a decision. I don't have
right.
all the information. I need to pray on this. I need to, because it could be a financial constraint to it. It could impact the lives of student athletes. It could really affect the community. I have to be okay with not making this decision today. But
Yeah.
when I do make the decision, I feel confident about it, and I'm going to stick with it unless there's some unforeseen circumstance or we have to shift a little bit. But I don't do well with peer pressure. I push
Mm.
back on peer pressure, unless it's a positive thing. Like when I got my doctorate, I think that was a positive peer
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you were pressured into completing your doctorate, is what you're saying?
I would say that after being rejected for a number of athletic director positions when I was in intercollegiate athletics, I felt that I needed that one leg up when it comes to competing against men in the
Mm-hmm.
role. And because many athletic directors report to university presidents, and they serve on university presidents' cabinets where there are other individuals in the room who have their doctorates. I felt, you know, that's just one excuse I'm going to take away from the industry and say, I'm going to pursue this. It was either that or be an attorney.
Yeah.
So I pursued the doctorate, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Well, and my apologies, because I should have been referring to you from jump as Dr. China Lee Jude.
You're
I
fine on that.
Well, no, I'm not. And I'm like slapping my own hand, because I completely knew that you had your PhD, and my mother has her doctorate as well.
Congratulations.
And so I know better. I always say I've never met a Black doctor. Don't call her doctor. So I am so sorry.
Don't even worry
But
about
I'm gonna respectfully say, so Dr. China Lee Jude,
that.
we so appreciate you, sis. So I want to know, since this position has been created, what are some of the changes that you have seen from the organization?
Oh, wow. So many positive things. We're extremely engaged now in the company as we're navigating on the outside also. So we've incorporated a lot of awareness initiatives and educational programming and looking at those policies to make sure that we're connecting with people from all walks of life in this particular company. We've even externally, we've participated in a number of awareness initiatives. For an example, the Pride Parade. It was the first time in the Denver metro area in that Pride Parade that was sponsored by the Center of Colfax, where all of the professional sports teams marched in that Pride Parade. And we were so happy to be a part of it. For us, it was like a no-brainer for us. We should do that because we want to celebrate
Yeah.
our LGBTQ plus community. And so to be a part of something really special, we were so excited about that, including marching in the MLK parade as well. That was very important. So
Yeah.
we're trying to make sure we're establishing relationships with local businesses, connecting with our chambers of commerces as well. We are a member of 6 ethnic, minority, and underrepresented chambers. So building those positive relationships so we can impact small businesses, women-owned businesses, disadvantaged businesses, because economic empowerment is very important, especially when it comes to what is described as BIPOCs, Black, Indigenous people of color. And so we're doing so many great things, and continuously connecting with our corporate partners and serving as a resource for them when it comes to DEI, connecting with the other professional sports teams. We launched a Black Employee Sports Network initiative with the Nuggets as well as with the Rockies.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing.
and so that's fun working with my counterparts from the other 2 professional organizations. So we're just in just so many places and spaces, far too many to name.
Well, for starters, yes, it is important. One of my favorite quotes is, "People at the bottom compete, people at the top collaborate." So, and we're
Yeah.
so much stronger together. But you mentioned something earlier, and I had a visceral reaction to it, because when I moved here to Denver from Chicago in 2009, I was doing a morning radio show. And I remember when people started talking about Pride Month, which was in June, of course. And I was so excited, because at my radio station in Chicago, that was like a huge event for us to do Pride. And people might recount this story and have revisionist history, but I'm very clear on this, okay? Um, I said to my team, I was like, "What are we doing for the Pride Parade?" And they all looked at me like I had 2 heads. And they're like, "Oh, no, we don't do that." And I was like, "What do you mean you don't do that?" "What do you
Wow.
mean you don't do the Pride Parade?" I'm like, "That's like the biggest event, like one of the biggest events of the year." And they're like, "Well, not in Denver." They're like, "Not only do we not do it, no media outlet in Denver does it." And sure enough, that was the truth. No
Wow.
media outlet in Denver participated in Pride Parade. So I, being like the very spunky 20 something that I was, like, well, this has to change. So I got with a local business. It was Hamburger Mary's at the time. And I was like, listen, we could do a collaborative event. Like, we'll give you some airtime, we'll have a party here, but can we be on your float? Because they had a huge float. And they were so excited for the media partnership that we ended up having a presence on that float. And I remember yes, it was so exciting. And I remember other media people, particularly people in the LGBTQIA plus community, saying, I think because this happened, we can do it too. And the next year, there were more media groups who were a part of it. So the fact that the Broncos and other professional sports teams are a part of that parade now makes me so happy. I could literally cry. Like,
Aw,
it's just so important. And it's been
good.
within, the past 14 years that that's happened. So to see that happen is just so amazing to me. And I'm so, so, so happy about it.
Oh,
So
thank
excited.
you. And kudos to you for leading the charge
Well,
and get
thank
the
you.
media, out there, because I think that that's really important. It was it really impacted us. We were so excited. The part that we were probably most disappointed about, we were only limited to 50 people in our group. we, we're like, now how are we going to pick these 50 people? So it was like first come, first serve. So we wanted more. More
Wow.
people wanted to show up to that,
Oh,
but we had so much fun. We met so many people.
yes.
We do have a community inside the Broncos organization, also of our employees, our teammates. And so this was just another way of showing that we see you, we embrace you, we want to create this culture of inclusion for you as well as all of the other demographics that we have in this organization. So it
Uh,
was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful day. And our team president was there
yes.
leading us, and it was great. It was our cheerleaders, our mascot,
Yes.
everyone was there. Yeah.
I love that so much. Another cause, or really just, I don't even know if we call it a cause, because it's so rooted in the foundation of who we are that, of course, we need it protected. But the Crown Act, I had the honor of speaking to advocate for the Crown Act in Colorado. And I understand that you introduced the Crown Act to your shareholders. So, what was the genesis of that, and what was the result?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, that's how I saw you on video on that. So I was like, who's his sister? And oh my
Oh,
goodness, she's in Denver, you know.
thank you.
So, we at that time when I started in April 2021, we did have a small population of Black women who worked in the organization in various departments. And I knew for me, because I rock my hair in so many different ways. Now
Mhm.
you see braids, probably in a couple of months it'll go, natural. It's just all different ways.
Yes,
And
diversity slay. We love it.
I love it. I love it, especially coming, being from Chicago myself. So, and my mother was a beautician. So it was just one of those things that I felt that was really important. And that was a common conversation that we had internally, as well as with a lot of the women of color around the country who I connect with, whether it's, on the intercollegiate athletics or just in my community. And so I remember having these conversations internally with those who are not women of color. And they say, I'm not familiar with the Crown Act. And this really also added to some conversations that men of color was having,
Mm.
whether it was cornrows or the do-rags or whatever, however they rocked it at work. And so I started doing some research and noticed, I'm like, oh my gosh, the Crown Act is here in the state. It's passed in the state.
Yeah.
And I said, this is a great opportunity to have what we call a critical conversation. It's kind of an internal webinar that we introduce different types of topics to our teammates here. And I said, who's the best person to connect with, who can speak on that? And of course, at that time, I didn't know you. I watched you from afar on a regular
Oh,
basis.
thank
But
you.
then when I saw Leslie Harrod,
Yes, and that's you picked the right one.
and I said, I found someone.
Yes.
I found someone great. So connected with her, one of my teammates who has locks in her hair, and she's one of our designers. She moderated that discussion and just really started having some honest and authentic conversations on this internal webinar about the Crown Act. And what did that mean in the workforce?
Yeah.
And how can our teammates across the board support those individuals who have a variety of hairstyles? And so it was a great conversation. As a matter of fact, it was probably one of our highest rated in terms of our survey results, because many of the individuals who are not people of color said, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that that was an issue because, they say it wasn't an issue for us, for our hair. We didn't know that you had to go through that. And so
Mhm.
it started building that awareness and that sensitivity to individuals who are rocking natural styles to a whole nother level. So
Yeah.
we're continuously celebrating. So now when I'm changing my hair in a lot of different ways,
Mhm.
it doesn't look so foreign to them anymore.
Yeah.
People start, recognizing it and really complimenting hair. And so I really appreciate it. It was a great decision we made.
Well, I first of all, Representative Herod was how I ended up speaking in support of the Crown Act being passed. And she worked with her team and her colleagues tirelessly to get this passed in the state. So she was absolutely the right person to speak on behalf of what was happening. I also think that it's a very aesthetic representation in more than one way because I have noticed an amplification of diversity when it comes to the cheerleaders on the field. And I'm like to the point where I get to games and I'm like, one, two, three, four,
Yes.
five. It's like, whoa.
I'm so excited about that too, because our director of cheerleading is very invested in DEI. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, she serves on our DEI committee. And so that was a commitment that she made in terms of diversity. Yes. And that it
Yes.
actually occurred last year when it started turning into
Mhm.
different types of flavors. And I
Yes.
love it.
Yeah, I was like, what is like then I went through the book like, oh what? And my
And they
husband
are
looked at me.
smart and beautiful and talented
Yes.
and articulate and wonderful ambassadors for the Broncos.
Uh, so exciting. I love to see it because I come from at 42, like during my day, there could only be one of us. So if I was on the team, I was the only person that looked like
Yes.
me. Even in the media space, like the idea that when we were cast for our daytime talk show, that
Mhm.
they cast two Black women was like unheard of. So, yeah, when she actually got the call, I was standing with her and I
Um,
congratulated her and told her that she had to do this for the both of us. And
yes.
then 5 minutes later, I got the call and I was like, "Wait, we're gonna be on a show together? That's bananas."
Wow. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And I don't know if you want to call it within that tokenism
Yeah.
mindset where we only can do one. We've hit our quota. That's that one. But to have two or more,
Mhm.
because no one questions that on the other side.
Right,
If it's two
right.
or more on the other side, why? That's not a big thing. But when it comes to someone in an underrepresented population, it's disheartening to see that when it's only one person or we only can do one person. I mean, no one says who made that rule in the first place. I have no idea.
Yeah,
Who
I
made
don't
that rule?
either.
You know?
Your guess is
So
as good as mine.
yeah, exactly. So we have to be mindful that if we're going to really truly mirror, the country, society, the community, the state, or whatever, demographic that we choose, that benchmark that we put take into consideration, that we're going to have to think outside of the box. And outside of the box should not be unique. It should be just an ongoing strategy that we should take into consideration. Let's just throw the old book out the window and let's just start fresh at this particular point on what we feel that our particular demographic, client base, community would need in order to convey whatever the message is, convey whatever the information that needs to be put out there.
Yeah. Well, Dr. China Lee Jude, before
Yeah,
I let you go, I have one more
yeah.
question and then I'm going to give you the floor because you said that DEI should be incorporated in every company or organization. But the truth, unfortunately, is that many DEI assist or programs or in terms of what's happening in corporate America have been cut, have been defunded over the past couple of years. So how do you think that that could be better resolved or how we can do better in the DEI space?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. DEI is under attack in so many different ways. I think primarily when it comes to educational institutions in a variety of states, targeted states, especially. But the whole idea is about how do we create that culture of inclusion? And if there is focus on inclusive behaviors, environments, strategies, and policies to make sure that there's some strategies of equity, not equality, but equity. And corporate leaders, educational leaders, etc., are really being intentional to not only cast the net out wide, treat people in that equitable fashion, and creating strategies to include them in decision-making process, then that can, move along. DEI is a new term, if you will. A long time ago, when I was in this space, way before I got into sports, it's called cultural sensitivity training back in the day. And so the name evolves,
Yeah.
but no matter what, it is all about how do we make sure that we're treating people with respect and in an equitable fashion and including them in a lot of ways that we're moving forward. And that's it. It shouldn't be the boogeyman or the bad person or, it's taken in such a negative way. And that's unfortunate. It's no different from having multiple children. You have multiple children in the house, you love them all in a different kind of way, but you love them all.
Yeah.
But you have to treat them in a different way. Sometimes you can be hard on one, but you have to, be really sensitive on another. It's in the same way in terms of this world. So I don't think that DEI should be dissolved in any kind of way. But if you're creating those brave and safe spaces for people from all walks of life so they can continue to show their authentic self, let's move forward that way.
That is the first time I've heard that analogy being used, but I was totally with you the whole way. Like, yes, there has to be equity, but there's also nuance.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate that. Before I let you go, is there anything you would like to share with my comeback community?
Oh, well, I tell you what, Erica, thank you very much. It's just an honor to be here. I greatly appreciate it. I just want to say to everyone out there, continue to love yourself, love others, show your authenticity, be unapologetically you in the process. and then take everything internally and then be able to spread it out throughout the community. And so, as Bruce Lee, the famous martial artist, would say, be water, flow through the community and beyond, in creating a culture of inclusion.
Love that. Dr. China Lee Jude, VP of DEI for the Denver Broncos. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us on Comeback with Erica Cobb. Is there something you would like for our comeback community in terms of like follow you or the organization, or where can we find more about you or your work?
Well, definitely denverbroncos.com is our website. You can also follow us. We have our Twitter page, our Facebook, our LinkedIn, and of course, for me individually, China Jude. That's the best part of having a unique name, China Jude. On all of the social media platforms, China Jude. You can find me very easily there. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And for my comeback community, if you're listening in the car, you can get the visuals on my YouTube page, Comeback with Erica Cobb, on my online home, comeback.tv. Thanks for listening.
Bye. Go Broncos.
Go Broncos!